Hello, my name is David from DN Cognitive Counseling. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different tonight. In my research for the webinar that I've been doing on parenting, I was looking through online at all the different things that was out there to try to help people, and I was trying to see where I could go ahead and help to fill some of those gaps. But while doing my research, I came across a couple of things that were a little bit disturbing. One of them was by an ex-therapist named Daniel Mackler, who goes on to explain his views on two issues that I really would like to address and hopefully be able to give a different perspective on. The first was children in therapy, and the second is whether or not somebody should have children. And I think that there needs to be a greater voice about that, given the amount of comments that was going back and forth on his site. Now, a comment is very nice that people can see as a one-sentence thing, but it doesn't really give justice to an idea. And I really wanted to go ahead and actually do that with you and hopefully give you insight. So, I'm going to first go ahead and play a little bit of Daniel to go ahead and give you his point of view, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you another point of view, and hopefully you're going to see that right about there now.
I don't believe that children belong in psychotherapy. My basic argument still, for why I still think kids don't belong in therapy, is if they have a really strong, healthy, intimate, nurturing, caring, open, honest relationship with parents, and parents who are healthy, parents who themselves are doing their own healing process, kids can buffer a lot of really unpleasant stuff in the outside world.
So you just heard Daniel explain why he doesn't believe a child belongs in psychotherapy. And his major argument is that when children come from a nurturing environment, they don't go ahead and have major issues that they can't emotionally deal with. Which he seems to promote that the idea that all child issues come from the parent unit. And that's just simply not true. Children have a variety of different issues and problems that come along for a variety of different reasons. I wonder if, Daniel, if you ever worked with a selective mute child, where you'll have 5 children in the family, and then just one child doesn't want to speak, and their anxiety level is so high that they don't want to talk. And it's not due to parental neglect or parental issues, and that a lot of parents don't know how to deal with this. There are certain parents that have children that just have higher anxiety than other children. If you have multiple children, it doesn't mean as a parent you have failed your child because one of them have an issue. Sometimes children have issues due to other reasons. And to say and to put it only on the parent, I think is unfair. In my experience, there are times where I'll see that a parent is an issue or a problem, and I have to deal with that in terms of the aspect of the therapy. But I would not say that any child that's seeking that the parent is seeking psychotherapy for, it's automatically because of an issue with the parent. And I think that's incredibly unfair to put on parents, and I don't think it's actually factual and what goes on in actual life. I think what you're doing is saying something that has an element of truth, that parents who don't do a job with their kids and don't do a good job with their children can cause problems. And that is true. But that doesn't mean that every child that has an issue and every child that has a problem, it's because of the parent's fault. So I'd like to go on now to another point.
The second big reason is that when I was a therapist, I liked to work with people who were autonomous. I liked to work with people who were independent. I didn't like working with people who were mandated to come to therapy. People who were mandated by probation officers or parole officers or drug counselors or other different jobs that said they had to go to therapy. I liked people who were coming of their own free will. Now you could say, yeah, children might be coming of their own free will, but the way in which children that I've seen are really not autonomous is they are lower in the power scale in their family system. Meaning they don't really have the opportunity to be themselves if it's not allowed in their system. So what I've seen is that when children are in therapy, for starters, the therapist is hobbled by being able to speak openly and honestly. Let's say the parents are really, really screwed up, but you can't always tell that to a child in therapy because it can cause more problems for them. It can create more havoc in their life. And also, if the children start to get healthier and start to grow and start to become bigger people, a lot of times that's simply not allowed in the family system. It can cause actually a lot more problems from them. The parents can really attack them. And a lot of times, whatever problems they were having in the beginning can become worse if the children become more honest, more healthy, more real, more alive, more creative.
Okay, in this video segment, you got to hear how Daniel goes ahead and explains how he doesn't like to work with non-autonomous people. That he enjoys and prefers having a client that has more the ability to be autonomous. And that's great and that's wonderful. But you don't get to choose what people need. When you're a therapist and you're trying to help people, you don't go, well, I like to work with people only with anxiety. I don't like to deal with depression. Or I like to work with people with post-traumatic stress disorder, but I don't enjoy working with people who have Asperger's. I don't think the issue, if you're a therapist and you're trying to help people, is to determine what you like to work with. I think that it's your job to try to work in the best way you can with the people that you're trying to help. And you may enjoy one thing more than another, and that's a beautiful thing if you do. But as the role of a therapist is not to enjoy your role as a healer or who you like to work with more. Your role is to help people who are in need of it. And a child may not have as much power, but it doesn't mean they don't need help. And it's true that that you working with in the system and you try to buck the system could be very problematic. But that's not your role as a therapist either. Your role is to help that child work within the context of that system to the best of their ability, to understand what their role is. I've worked with many, many schools, with many, many teachers. Not every teacher is wonderful. Sometimes the teacher is a problem in the classroom. It doesn't mean that you have the ability to get rid of them. And one of the things you have to help a child to do is deal sometimes with a bad teacher, and there's value in that. Sometimes you have a bad boss at work, and the power is not the same. And sometimes you don't have the ability just to quit a job. So you do have to understand to help people work through systems where they're not in power. There's value in that. And I understand there are things that you may like, but to tell people they don't belong in therapy because you don't enjoy working with them is really not a great reason. When you're a therapist and you're trying to help within the context of a system is when you do the best work. It's not our job to be the judge and jury. Our job is to help people to be adaptive in their functioning within the context of their families, the way they are, not the way we dream them up or wish they would be. And that's what's important. But let's go on a little bit more.
What does happen in therapy if children are not necessarily allowed to grow freely, if they're not allowed to grow more autonomous, more independent, more free thinking as the result of the psychotherapy process? Well, what I've seen, what happens a lot is that if they're not allowed to grow more free, they have to grow in a way more twisted. They have to grow to be able to adjust to their parents more and adjust to the systems that are really screwed up that they live in.
Okay, this is going to be the final segment that I'm dealing with on this issue about children in therapy. And Daniel's upset about the fact that a child has to not be free to grow in the way that they want, but have to deal within the context of systems. And you're right. Children are not free. But not only children, adults are not free. We all have to deal with systems to a certain degree. That is what's called adaptive in functioning, dealing with people in social ways. We are social animals. We have to be able to deal with people. We have to deal with systems. We have to deal in the context of families. We have to deal in the context of family structure. We have to deal with communities. We have to deal with government. We have to deal with bureaucracy. It would be very, very nice to do what you like in free aspects of life. But the aspect of a therapist is not to go ahead and have people just go ahead and do what they want. I have a lot of clients I deal with who are mandated. And you know something? They have to learn this lesson in a very hard way. They want to do things their way. They've gone to prison. They've lost children. You have to deal sometimes with ACS. You have to deal with the structure of parole, probation. And you have to understand that you just don't get to do things all the time your own way. And there's a reason why that learning as the aspect of being able to contort yourself, to work within a system, is actually adaptive and functioning. To grow only your way and to only look at things in one way is a recipe for narcissism, where you only care about yourself and only about your way that you want to see things, which is not healthy. It leads you to be alone and isolated. And human beings are social animals. We don't do well when we're alone and isolated. So helping a child to deal with an unhealthy structure in a more adaptive way is a great thing for a therapist to help a child to do. And to go ahead and say, well, the child, you don't need therapy, only your parents do because it's all their fault, is really not helpful. It's not helpful to them, and it's not helpful for the child. If an individual therapist says, no problem, I don't want to work with children, absolutely go ahead. If children are not for you, then don't work with them. But for you to go ahead and say that children don't need therapy based upon the reasons you give, actually I think is a disservice to the people that you're talking to and is actually doing more damage than good. You also made mention in your video, which I'm not going to go into because it was more of a personalized nature, about the therapy structure and how therapists get off by working with children. I've been working with therapists that work with children for many years, and I've worked with children for many years. And sadly, I just don't even know what you're talking about. I don't get off from working with clients. But then again, I don't have an idea that I like to work with this client over that client. And I don't like to work with my mandated clients any less than I like to work with my non-mandated clients. I have a private practice, and then I work with clients that are mandated in a program. And I don't enjoy one client over another. My role is to help them. It's to help them be able to go ahead and get to the goals they want. It's not my job to judge them. And I'm hearing a lot of aspects of judgment and the aspects of what you feel is right and wrong based upon your own convictions and ideas in life. And you're entitled to your beliefs. But to pass that off as that's what therapists do and they feel is not true, and it's not right. I have never gone ahead and said, I like this and I like to work with this population. It's just not the way that I work with people. My job is not to make that judgment. My job is not to go ahead and to make them feel a certain way about themselves based upon my own personal beliefs. That would be unethical. And I don't believe that telling parents that they shouldn't put their children in therapy because they should work on their own issues first, which may take them 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And while all that time is going on, the child could be suffering, and then you find that it wasn't even their issue, is irresponsible. So I want you to understand that sending your child for psychotherapy is a very good thing if they need it. Now, to go ahead and say that every child needs psychotherapy, of course not. But to tell parents that they should never put their child in psychotherapy, or very rarely, is really not fair. And that's what compelled me to make this video. And again, I would appreciate your comments on the section if you disagree with me. And if you can make a good case, I'd love to hear it. And if you have other questions about this, I'd love to be able to hear it. I will be making one other response video to something else that Daniel said about children and that I feel has to be also said. But I hope that you found this helpful, and please comment below and subscribe to the channel if you found this helpful to you.